All right. So my guest on the podcast today is Bev Roberts, and she's I've decided to invite her on because her one of her topics of interest that I'm aware of is email marketing, and I've really been wanting to tell everyone about email marketing, but I thought maybe I should get someone who specializes in this, who does this as their thing. Um, so I would love to get Bev to do some explaining about why it's important for us in business.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very important in lots of ways. And what I realize, I think if we think of social media as rented land, right? And I think of my emailing list as my community. I have pure control over that mailing list. I cannot censure myself. So if I cover sensitive topics, let's say women's sexual health or something like that, I won't be censored by anybody. And also, if I'm dealing with a marginalized minority, I don't have to, uh, you know, play political games on social media. So now more than ever, and I think for anyone who's had either their Facebook account hacked or they've actually lost access to their business page or their ads manager or something like that, they'll know that it's almost like a faceless process. You
Mm,
have no rights whatsoever. So I would say right from the get-go, instead of it's kind of an and, right? It's not an or, it's an and. Yes, do need some presence on social media. And if that's your jam and you love doing lives and all those things, that's great. But those are not your audience. They haven't actually had done a value exchange with you by giving you their email
hmm.
in return for something. So there's no value exchange, there's no loyalty to that. And that process of just having social media followers, yes, you could have hundreds of social media followers, but it's a very high risk strategy. So I prefer to focus on growing and nurturing your own soul aligned community,
Mm.
right? And doing it in a consent driven way so that you can share your truth with those people because they are your people. They're right people for you.
Yes to all of that. That's that's what I want everyone to know too. Yeah, social media is borrowed space. Yes, it's free. Yes, you can get in front of many people who you've never met before. But it comes with caveats and consequences. And like you described, you could lose your account and having to deal with support is a pain in the bum.
Yeah. So it's in the time that I've been in online business, honestly, I mean, I've had my Facebook account hacked, and if I did not have an admin on my business page, I would have lost my business page as well. And I've never been able to get that Facebook account back. So I've also lost a lot of personal stuff, like I used it like a travel diary and those sort of things. So
Hmm.
yeah, if you haven't got to list building yet, this is your call to action. Let's get
Yeah.
real, because really you're also able to connect with people more deeply and ask them questions that some people wouldn't answer in a public forum.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm all about list building and list growth. And I
Yeah.
think the reason that I'm passionate about this is because I don't know if you get these, Lou, but I get these whenever I post about hacking, I get these random robots coming and posting all this dark vitriol on my
Mm.
page. And it feels just so invasive and this yuck. I just don't like it. So I know that when I get a reply from somebody on an email, they have a
Mm.
genuine interest. Yes, you do
Mm-hmm.
get some spammers that join your list. Well, quickly weed those ones out
Mm-hmm.
too when I do sort of housekeeping. But yeah, and then you can build rapport with people,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's over email and get to know what it is that they're wanting from you. So and important, I think. Yeah, it's my passion around consent-driven marketing.
That's really good to know. Yeah, I haven't had any bots come in as like they've been triggered by something I said in my post, but they do often come up for me and people I know. They sort of come after you if you've been running ads through Facebook. They'll start sending you those messages. Oh, you've violated copyright. We're going to delete you if you don't click this.
Yeah. Oh, that's a daily affair. I've got my methodology now where I report it twice because you can actually do it once and you block them and whatever, and then I report it and that's that process, and then it comes back to the message when once you block them, and then it says report, and I report it again with a different reason. So every one of mine's got two sort of reasons going through because they've actually added a reason now called falsely representing a business. In other words,
Mm.
falsely representing Meta.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So just for the sake of people who listen to my podcast, a lot of people who tune in are those online service providers, uh, therapists, coaches, and those who run group coaching and group classes. So I think it would be helpful if you explained what exactly you do and if this overlaps with those people that I just described.
Yes, absolutely. Those are also my people. So it's sort
Okay.
of consultants, and online business owners on
Yep.
my space as well. And so I'm a holistic business mentor. I grew up in the corporate world. I have a master's in business strategy and transformation and ran a seven-figure consulting business after an executive career. And what I realized is that corporate just like wasn't for me anymore in the terms of um, when I wanted to do consulting, I found that was my way in because I had control over who I could work with. And in
Mm-hmm.
the online space, that's absolutely key. You can choose to work with people or not, right? And my sort of little quick journey is over the past 10 years, I've navigated chronic illness that resulted in a loss of cognitive function. And so, in other words, I couldn't speak properly. I had to retrain my brain. And through my love of
Mm.
learning and my inherent skills of coaching, of mentoring people, I studied as an integrative well-being coach. But
Mm.
when the big problem hit in February 2020, I knew that I needed to go back to my passion of creating solutions in business, right? That
Mm.
was always my thing. I always was a solution maker in business. And I could see my peers around me losing their livelihood because they had bricks and mortar business and they didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to get online. And so
Mm.
initially I helped practitioners and coaches get their businesses online, but now I prioritize teaching others about heart-led and consent-based marketing from a strategy, marketing, and technology perspective. So I've got like a three-legged stool. So for me, it's kind of, I've almost like grown up in corporate, learned, what I don't like and do like about business and led professional services. And now, so technology for me is just a means to an end. I'm not a lover of technology because I love geekiness. No,
Mm.
it just means I can automate things that I never want to do again.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's quite a history you've had there too. And yeah, sometimes it takes experiencing what you don't want to discover what you want for yourself and create the world that you want to live in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I sort of imagine there's people out there who have interacted with businesses online and they sort of feel like it's normal and expected for it to be so cold and impersonal and robotic and uh, people are scared to put their email address out there. One thing I noticed if I shop anywhere online, I just automatically get added to their newsletter and I wasn't aware that was going to happen, but do they think they can do that?
Well, that's hence my said to you about consent-driven marketing. So, in the old days, if you think back to when we didn't have these kind of autoresponders being able to create your own community of people online and sending them emails directly, we used to hand out business cards, right?
Mm.
So we used to exchange business cards and then we'd have this Rolodex filled with stuff. But if you put yourself back in that situation, Lou, don't know if you're young enough or old enough, but what I found is that I never thrust my card in front of people. I waited for people to ask for my card, right?
Mm.
And that's the same in the online space. You need to create something that people would like to have that's going to make a difference. It's going to make a change for them. And then they ask by actually putting their email address in your opt-in form. So that's
Mhm,
the
mhm,
first level of consent. And if you think of the CAN-SPAM Act, and in Australia specifically, they have what they call that. So that, opting in is the direct form of consent.
mm,
They have unfortunately also included in that act inherent consent, which I do not agree with, which is exactly what you're describing. You happen to buy something, they didn't even have a little small byline that said, by purchasing this, we'll add you to our list and you can
mhm,
unsubscribe at any time, right? So to me, that's where the lack of consent comes in. So if, for example, even, and I'm busy doing this myself at the moment, I'm migrating from one email platform to another.
mm,
I'm using an opt-in form on the new platform to get people over. I do not export those people out. I don't take it as the consent they gave me in the past equals consent to the future. So
mhm,
you always use an opt-in form, right? And get people to sign up for your mailing list. So even if you doing that. And another way to amplify the consent is to give that value exchange. Make something that's of high value, that's actionable, freebie, lead magnet, whatever you want to call it, and invite people to join your list through that action, right?
mm.
And I think once they are on your list, you need to give them a reason to stay,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's it's only the first part of the consent-based process
Mhm,
is give them a reason to stay. And the reason to stay is offering unique content first. So
mhm,
if you are, for example, somebody who writes a lot of blogs, what you might want to do is give not the synopsis of the blog in your newsletter, but give this deeper, so what about this? If
mm,
you read this blog and you take action, what would happen as a result? Because
mm,
that's your insider news, it's your
mhm,
create something unique and specific for them, because that I feel kind of gives them that reason to say, oh, now I've got a bit more about that. So
mhm,
if I talk about high performing email lists, I'm going to give my newsletter a little bit more goss than that's in the blog. So
mm,
that would be another way to add, and it, it's obviously taking consent a little bit further, because you're saying, here's what I need you to know. And if you can use that information, well, go use it, So that's sort of the exchange that you opting. And another area around consent-driven marketing is, yes, when you have people on your list, you will make offers from time to time. That's, why we also have a list, is not only the education and creating connection and those kind of things,
mhm,
but it's also your email list are twice as likely to buy as anyone on a social media following.
mhm,
So you've got that attention of the right people in that space. But whenever you do a launch, make sure there's a way for them to opt out just for that launch.
mm,
Right? So give them a choice. That's really what consent is about choice.
mhm,
So give them a way to do that. And I also find in terms of consent, if people, let's say they joined your email list, and even if you look back, over 6 months, if they're not opening any of your emails, there's very little point in keeping them on your list, as
mhm,
long as you know how they're opening their emails. So you could do a re-engagement with them and say, hey, my system tells me that you're not opening the emails. Are you still interested? If you are, click here, which
Hmm.
obviously activates. And if not, you know, um, bless you, on your way kind of thing, say,
Yeah.
au revoir for now, because I have boomerang people. They come for a period of time and then they go off and then they come back again because they see something else that
Hmm.
I'm doing. Um, so I think that those sort of things about consent is just really good practices to just enhance that trust, I guess, enhance the trust,
Yeah.
build the connection, and give them value.
Yeah. And give them freedom.
Yeah, freedom of choice, absolutely.
Mm.
My little statement at the bottom of all of my emails says, you know, if you need to unsubscribe at this time, do so, and I wish you well. Kind of like I have no hard feelings about somebody
Mhm.
leaving my list. You know, when somebody ethically reports my emails as spam, even though they signed up, I do have a lot to say about them, and I usually approach them directly. So
Okay.
yeah, because sometimes I've had really great clients of mine be reported as spam, and I'll approach them in a very nice way to say, did you know that it was reported as spam? And they say, I haven't. And I take their email, give it to the autoresponder and say, take that flag off. Because
Mm.
systems can make mistakes, right? So yeah, so you always just check in about those because it's the spam things that stop your emails being delivered eventually in the long run. So you got
Hmm.
to get on top of those as well.
Yes. For those who may not be technically inclined, I just did want to throw in an explanation here. So some email marketing systems, some platforms are clever and they can sort of see signals in what's said in the email, how often people open them, etc. They sort of use their clever computer brain to figure out if you may or may not be spam. Is that a good description?
Yeah, it's a very good description, yes, because sometimes you can use what are called trigger words.
Hmm.
So in all industries, they're trigger words. So if you're, say, in the health space, you could type in trigger words for spam in the health space, and Google will generously give you some words not to use.
Oh, that's really handy.
Easy.
Yeah. So you told us a lot about consent, and I agree. I love that. That's perfect. And I much prefer to live and exist in an internet and interact with people based on consent rather than feeling like I'm being forced into it, which is what a lot of websites do with pop-ups.
Oh, don't get me started. That's my beef. I
Okay,
can't stand pop-ups.
that's
I've
not.
never taught one pop-up and I will never will. Because you normally send somebody to a link to do something and
Yeah.
then you distract them with all the stuff. Let them just have the privilege of reading whatever blog it is or finding the thing. I've seen some people when you click, to subscribe, the pop-up comes up. I think that's probably acceptable. I still don't do it. I embed it in the page, so I don't
Mm.
take them off the page anyway. So yeah, no, pop-ups. Oh, gee, that's another story here.
Yeah.
Pop-ups AI, don't get me started, Lou.
Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. No, I found that when I'm evaluating and reviewing a website performance and when I'm looking at um, whether or not the website visitor is following through with that call to action, whether or not they're doing the things you want, I find that generally the more things you have for them to do on a page, the less likely they are to follow through and submit to that call to action or whatever it is you want them to do.
I would call that what I often refer to it myself as butterfly brain because we are distracted really easily by
Mm,
things. It's just the nature of how we seek dopamine to feel pleasure, right? So we're wired like that. So, for example, if you're doing your opt-in page for the thing, it needs to be very simple, straight to the point. what is it that you're going to get? What's the outcome going to be? Sign up
Mm.
here and let's go. So it is not a 3-page format. It's a very small format because usually it's come from either a promo post
Mm.
or you've explained it in a newsletter. So it just needs to be really tight on that. So to your point, it's got to be usable and the person needs to get to that call to action
Yep.
clearly. It's a clear path. Oh, here's what it's called. Here's what it does. This is what I get. I'm signing up or not, right?
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Because I think this is the other thing with consent-driven marketing is you don't want everybody, right? You want the people who are in your niche, who are like really well suited to your services and your offers, because that's the big game. That's the long game, right? You'd love to have followers, you love to have people on your list. And I've had people on my list for even up to 2 years who haven't purchased. And then suddenly they decide this is the time for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still in that nurturing process, receiving newsletters that are packed with some value, those kind of things. So timing, I don't think is the thing with an email list when you nurture them. It's more keep giving value, show
Mm-hmm.
them that there's another way to do something. And when the time is right, they'll buy. But your list are your highest conversions usually.
Yes. Yes, I've observed that as well. And that's actually a good segue to a question I really wanted to ask because somebody asked me this question and I thought if I'm going to have an email marketing person on my podcast, I'd rather let them answer this. So I was asked, how many emails should you have in an opt-in sequence?
Mm, okay. Probably differing from the mainstream masculine approach. So, bear with me. Less is more, in my opinion. And 14 emails in 7 or 14 days has me unsubscribing, right? That is a very masculine, aggressive approach.
Yeah.
And if someone tells you to do it and it doesn't feel right, then don't do it. So
Mm-hmm,
just
mm-hmm,
trust your
mm-hmm.
intuition on this. The opt-in sequence emails need to be adding value and be building the case, right?
Mm,
So they need to step somebody towards your offer.
mm,
And I feel that, when I first started doing any of this kind of consent-driven marketing, I was doing sort of 2 days. I'm now up to 4 days apart from emails.
mm-hmm.
People's inboxes are flooded with emails, but
Yep.
you need to give them a reason to open yours, right? They need to look forward to, oh, when's the next one coming? When's the next installment, so to speak? And so
Mm,
I use a 4-part opt-in sequence. So the first is the delivery of the thing. So if you promised a quiz results, whether you promised an ebook or guide or
mm-hmm,
whatever it
mm-hmm,
is, the delivery. So the first one
mm-hmm,
focus on the delivery and it seeds your offer. The second one is busting a myth about the problem that they're facing. So, if you think that weight loss is to do with this, well, it's not. It's actually to do with that,
mm-hmm,
that kind of thing.
mm-hmm,
So what you really know to be true. So they may have thought all along, oh, this is what my problem is and this is how I might solve it, but you bust the myth. And then the third one, I usually use some form of case study or testimonial to show how they could go through that journey, right? So,
mm-hmm.
and put it in the way that, and it's very integral and it's not a general case study. And if you don't have a case study yet, if you're new in business and this is your first, rodeo, then you can use your own story because often
Mm,
we start to work in the spaces where we've learned or experienced growth ourselves.
mm,
So that's a good place to talk about your own story in that thing. So if you're a relationship coach for something, something like that, having a
mm,
personal touch around there. And the fourth one is usually more an open question because if somebody after 3 emails hasn't taken a peek at the sales page, hasn't, um, and usually the other thing too here, Lou, sorry, I'm just going to digress from how many emails,
Okay.
is email selling means that the price point of whatever you're offering needs to be under $100.
Mm,
right? You cannot sell by email a high-end product, right? That's best done through workshops, webinars, challenges,
mm,
quizzes, and those kind of things, right? Where you are much more integral and deep into who they are, what they stand for, what they
mm,
want, what they don't want, those kind of things. So when it's from a what I would call an evergreen freebie, that's a guide, a handout, a worksheet, those kind of things. It's better to stick under $100 if you're going to sell. A lot of times, this is where, when you're starting in business, that a discovery type call has value, right? So
mm,
you've got the time, you've got the available time to get to hone your craft about understand, and obviously those calls need structure too. They
mhm,
need a clear structure that then gives you at a point in time. So let's say if it's 30 minutes, by 20 minutes, you need to be able to ask, would you like some help with that?
mhm, mhm,
If it's no, thank you for your time. We're lovely to be with you. Bye bye.
mhm,
If it's yes, then you obviously go more down the sales conversation, right?
mhm,
So I think in terms of the number, I find four really sits well with me. I don't feel that it's invasive.
mm,
And if somebody's not interested in that, and because, for example, I have the List Growth Club, and a lot of my opt-ins lead to the List Growth Club, right?
mhm,
Because that's the other thing that you need to get really clear on with your opt-ins, is they have a line of sight to an offer. And they don't all have to be to the same offer, but I have a couple that go to the List Growth Club. If somebody has gone through one of my opt-in sequences, when they come into another one, let's say they go to Fabulous First opt-ins and then they come in through the webinar checklist. Once it goes through the first two emails, it kicks them out of that automation because
mm.
I'm going to be saying the similar sort of
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So so then they don't have to sit through the next two emails, case studies and you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but I've found that it's worked for me. And I've been mentored by people who do many, many more emails. So I
Mm,
think you've got to find
mhm,
the one that sits well with you. So
yeah,
what sits well with you? What would you like to receive? I think is the
yes,
question you need to ask.
yeah. I agree. That's really beautiful. And I wanted to say, like, I really appreciate how you explained that and how you articulated that because I know that if I went to Google or to Reddit asking this question, how many emails should I have in my sequence? The answer that I get there is likely going to be written by a man or masculine person. And so what
Correct.
that's it, the Google and Reddit are just biased that way, unfortunately. But yeah, just because that's what the most common answer is, it doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it.
No, no. I think in online business, specifically for anyone, who identifies like us in terms of the feminine and doing business in a feminine heart-centered way,
Mm,
for us we have to use discernment
hmm,
because
hmm,
someone famous is teaching it. Don't ride against your own intuition.
hmm, hmm.
If you
Yep,
feel sick in the stomach at the thought of 14 emails in 7 days,
yep.
don't do it,
Hmm.
right? So I think you don't override your own intuition would be my strong recommendation.
Very cool. Yes, I totally agree. Um, wow. Oh my gosh, my brain is tingly because I'm excited by all this information that you just shared. So we're getting close to the half hour mark. So I thought maybe we could wrap it up with one more question. If somebody doesn't have an email list for their business, what should they do?
Mm. That's a great question. I love this question. Thank you. Because a lot of people start talking about choosing platforms and all sorts of structures and that. No, 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 no. You need to get clear on who your ideal audience are and how you can help them to move towards their goals. When you have that level of clarity about, let's say, Island A and Island B, here's the pain, this is the discomfort, they don't want to be here. but over here is where the desire and the dream is, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you know that, you can build the bridge between those two things, okay, and create a high impact freebie or lead magnet that makes people want to just like, jump in, sign up. That I know that's what's going to make, and you're not looking at solving all their problems. You're
Mm-hmm.
taking a specific area and you're saying, let me help you move forward on here. Let me help you create the change you need. And by doing that, you can then segment your audience, right? So because most of us are a little multi-passionate, and so we have aspects in our overall audience that we know, for example, areas of interest that they have. Because you add them into your autoresponder, you can add them into a group, you can add a tag to them, those kind of things. So what you're doing then is segmenting it for future use, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when something in that comes up new that applies so directly to those people, you can just speak to those people. You don't have to speak to everybody on the
Mm-hmm.
list. It's a great way to do that. And I find this is where a quiz works really well.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm teaching at the moment because not many people do it very well because they don't know the science and the art of it
Mm-hmm.
and mix it with marketing, right? So that's something I'm teaching called Quiz Alchemy because I just really, it's got to be transformational and it's one of the best ways to segment your audience very easily. But then if you think of it, so yeah, you know these people, that's your
Mm-hmm.
first step, to know these people, who they are, what do they need from you, create a solution, right? So
Mm-hmm.
create a solution for them that takes them the next step forward. So it's a quick win. It's not resolving every problem they've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And that quick win could be, if you're a kinesiologist, for example, could be awareness, right? Could be deep awareness that something has to change, right? So that it doesn't have to be outcome is that, oh, you don't have this problem anymore. It's
Mm-hmm.
oh, I really have a problem. I need help, right? So there could be at a different level. And then with your content in the opt-in and the freebie, be very generous. Be very generous. You've got so much to give, really. You could not possibly, fulfill it. But then don't overwhelm people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. Find a lot with, especially my practitioner style people, coaches that have got lots of models. They throw everything at it, but you've got to keep in mind what was the problem I was trying to solve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And get them towards that because then the subscriber who's receiving this information, whether it's your ebook or whatever it is, they feel heard and understood, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing more powerful than feeling heard and understood. And then once you've done that, it's about focusing on the quality and the performance of your list, not the number. You could have 1,000 subscribers, of which 900 are unengaged, and that would be useless. You could have a list of 100, and if 75 were engaged, you would be in a better position. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
this is where I see there's so much emphasis on the size of your list. To me, it's not the size, it's the quality of your list. You can have a small list and still make a lot of sales. So yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
for what do you do first? I'd say know the audience,
Mm-hmm.
get the
Mm-hmm.
freebie that really meets their need, genuinely give the value that they're seeking, and then make sure that you keep them engaged.
Yeah, I agree. Figure out the who and the what and the why before you start worrying about which platform to go on.
Yes, that's sort of the next step. You've got to, it's almost this is the step that I call the design phase. You need to do the design independent of any setups, right? Yes, you do have to write the emails and you do have to put them on a platform, and that comes next. And another little thing that I see some of the people do is that they start with the freebie. They don't start with really knowing the audience because they've got something to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And we all make these mistakes. And, if I think of some of my early opt-ins, I go, oh my goodness, yeah, I was jumping the gun there on what I thought they needed. but yet one of my freebies that still gets downloads, and I think to myself, I don't know if I'm promoting this anymore, is how to run your online business for less than $35 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it is so practical. It steps them through
Mm-hmm.
every single thing they need to do. And there's only using two tools in there. One is Zoom and one is Canva. So it's sort of like, and I think I probably promote it maybe once every 2 months on my socials, and I still get
Wow,
downloads. So
impressive.
it's fascinating to me. But that's what happens when you create something that's valuable if
Mm.
somebody is ready for that, you know. So that's not for an established business, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
for a startup business. Whereas for you know, somebody who's in the midpoint of their business, a webinar checklist, that goes like hotcakes too, because now they've
Mm.
got all the other moving parts things. Now they need to do live, you know, opt-ins, and there's a lot of moving parts to webinars and that kind of thing, you know. So
Yeah.
you'll find your if you know your audience, what the problem is, what the stage is, and then yeah, you'll. All I'd also encourage people to do is please just start
Yeah.
because you can talk about a freebie, you know, you can think you're going to find the best freebie. The best freebie is the one that's being promoted,
Mm-hmm.
right? Got to get it out there, get it promoted, and then start tweaking, right? What's not working? Is it my promo post? Is it my landing page? Is it my subject lines? You know, then you go through that process of performance improvement on each part of the opt-in funnel. So yeah. So I can talk about this all day.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you.
I love the opportunity. Thank you so much, Lee.